welcome to Second Chance Points. I'm Dave Rudin, and we have a special episode. We're going to discuss the state tournament format, which begins this week. We're going to have first round Division I games on Thursday, and West Hill, which is 0-20, is going to be playing a first round game against East Catholic, the number one team. We're going to have 3 teams that are under 500, 5 teams that are 500 or below. We're going to have a team, Wilton, that is not one of the top 16 teams, but opted to, before the start of the season, to be in Division I. We've been talking about how the state playoff format has been broken for a while, and it's never come into more evidence than this year with these issues. And what's the problem? All these decisions were made before the first ball was even tipped at the start of the season. In Connecticut, for some reason, we like to go by the past and not the present. And we do everything to ensure, while trying to set up an ideal 16 team or an ideal field of Division I teams, we do everything to ensure that we don't have the best teams. So I wanted to do a special podcast. Mike's with me, and joining us as well is Ridgefield coach Andrew McClellan, who also has been pretty outspoken in terms of his views on the tournament and trying to play a part in what we all want to do, and that's to set up the best tournament possible for players, coaches, and fans in Connecticut. Gentlemen, how you doing? And thanks for taking the time, Drew, especially.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Always love to talk hoops, and just have a little roundtable on the CIAC tournament.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here discussing it, especially with Andrew. I know that he has some, I think, intelligent views on the tournament. He brings a wealth of knowledge, having come from Chicago, where they run a kind of different tournament, and he's been able to see how Connecticut runs it over the past 10 or 12 years. And thanks for coming on and giving us a little insight into what you, a present-day coach and a successful coach, feels about the tournament and how we could improve it. I don't really think we're here to criticize the tournament as much as how we could make it better. As Dave said, for the kids and for the players, for the coaches, and for the people involved.
Okay, why don't we start off with one or two? I think we're both in agreement. I think all in agreement. I think everybody's in agreement. A tournament is never going to work if the factors that you use to devise it include what you did in the past. Nobody cares what you did 3 years ago, what you did last year. Bristol Central graduated everybody from last year's championship team and moved up from 2-1. So I think we all agree it's all got to be on this year. One interesting question, it's sort of a basic question. Given the issues, should there be a Division I tournament? Because it's kind of, I was thinking about this today. For Division I tournament, it's great for Division I, but then are you saying that the other tournaments are substandard to a Division I? What are your views on just having a Division I tournament?
Yeah, I think for me, I like the idea of the Division I tournament. I think again, my biggest issue is that there are too many tournaments in Connecticut. I'd like to find a way to incentivize teams to want to be in the Division I tournament. And I think the best way to do that is just maybe have 2 or I guess possibly 3 tournaments. And then really, make a big deal when you make it to the semifinals, kind of like the Final Four of the state. So, my idea or thought process is to make the tournament bigger so that there are more teams involved. And in Connecticut, maybe that means we have 2 tournaments, but there are 2 Final Fours. I think that's an interesting way to still incentivize and make a big deal if you win a couple games in the state tournament.
I agree with you. The only problem is going to be the CIAC sees all that money coming in from,
Yeah,
from 10 gates. And I agree that's where I'd like to see it go. I don't know if we're ever going below 5 again because of all the money and revenue that's coming in. But I guess for right now, let's get the money aside and let's try to come up with realistic proposal. 5 state champions is too many. I think we need to have a way to get the best teams together. We need to give a way to get the small schools on equal footing so that they have a fair chance to win a championship. I think those are two things that need to be filled.
well, I
with the smaller schools too.
those are some great points. I agree with Andrew, though. I think a Division One tournament is really a good idea. I think that the best tournament they ever had was back in 2001 when they had a division. I think 16, and especially trying to pick them, as we all kind of agree, prior to the season based on 3 years in history, is a mistake. But it can be complicated as to who those 32 teams are. But at the same time, if you look at this year's tournament and then take the top teams in Division Two, I think you could come up with 32 very, very good teams. And when one plays 32, I don't think it would be a Westville versus East Catholic. It would be a game which could be an upset. And I think that that's what they should be looking forward to, because that's the kind of, and then to Andrew's point, you move down to another division, and whoever wins that division would be on the same equal footing and get the same thrill of being a state championship. Now, as you say, they'll never go away from 5, but at the same time, a small school should be able to get that thrill too. So I like the idea of expanding Division One. I like the idea of putting the best teams in Division One. It kind of also solves the problem of what to do with the parochial schools of choice. And I think that was a big reason for why the state tournament is like it is now. And you could take a team that was very successful, school of choice, Catholic school, whatever, and they would be in Division One if they had a great season. And St. Bernard's, good example of that. Holy Cross, good example of that. And not only schools of choice, but you take a school like Ward, who had a fantastic year. They were 17-3. They were in Division One until Wilton opted up. And until I believe Hillhouse opted up and Notre Dame of Fairfield opted up. So, it makes sense. Now, how you change that, I'm not sure how that goes. You go about doing that.
Opt up is not a word you want to hear when we're trying to get a good state format together.
I think one idea is to have like 4 Division One regionals. And if you win them, it's like I said, it's sort of like a championship in itself. And then you have a Final Four that they could, if they were worried about money, if that's the central thought, then I mean, right there you have 4 champions or 4 Final Four, regional winners or whatever it is, and then you go into this, Final Four. So it's just a bigger, different way of doing it. But again, like we're never going to be able to get the best 16 teams into Division One. It's just logistically really hard. I guess if you did it by a formula, like we talked about a little earlier, like Massachusetts runs, that has like, it accounts for, the teams that you've beaten and who they've beaten. Like we also are still penalizing teams in Connecticut for winning out of state games. Doesn't matter how good or bad those teams are, you just get 10 power points. So, there's a lot of things that, in my opinion, I just want someone or some group of people to spend some time and look into it, just to make our product better. I'm certainly, like Mike said, not here to complain. We just like to make it even better. It's like basketball in Connecticut is good. We just are looking to improve it and give out some ideas here.
Well, I'm going to complain a little when we have 0 and 20 teams and stuff in there. I think it's embarrassing. That's really it's embarrassing, and everybody associated with basketball in the state should be embarrassed by that. So, I mean, that's just sort of extreme there. So, Drew, as a coach, how would you feel if 32 teams, 16 teams, whatever, there was a seeding committee, and the seeding committee either seeded teams exactly, or if you wanted to take a little bit of pressure off a seeding committee, they pick the best 16 or 32 teams, and then you go back to how they do it now by won-loss records in terms of seeding them?
Yeah, like I said, as long as they got a committee that spent some time and really looked into it, I'd be for that. Now, like I feel really strongly about more than 16 teams in the tournament, because again, like I think you have to incentivize and make it more teams want to be in Division One. I think there are probably, there's a thought process that we can't win Division One, so we'll just go into Division Two and try to win that.
Yeah.
And I think if there's only 2 tournaments, like the teams that are thinking like that aren't going to want to be in the lower one, because it would be a little bit like the NIT. Everybody wants to make the big tournament, and that's kind of the way that I see it. It's probably easy for me to say it from where I am, but that's the reason for, or the angle that I'm coming from.
Are you just
Well,
looking at
just a point. Just a point, Dave. And Andrew and I talked about this before we went on. If they look north to Massachusetts, they basically don't have a seating committee or anything like that. They go by a max prep formula as to what your success during the season was. And they have Division One. They actually have 5 division, but they have a lot more teams, obviously. But you don't have control over it. It's just based on who you beat and the record of the teams that you beat, and then they're seeded in accordingly. And Division One example has 46 teams, and the number 1 team got knocked off by number 32 team, which makes for an exciting tournament. It's almost like Hoosiers back in the day with Indiana. You get the smaller school, the school may have a chance there, but take that and put it into play, base it on this year, and we all kind of agree with that. I'm curious, Andrew, you're from Chicago and Illinois, great basketball. How do they do it over there and out there?
Yeah, so the different thing that they do in Illinois is
I don't know if you heard my question.
I did. I got it, Mike. The different thing that they do in Illinois is it's like they used to do it here. It's based on school size, but there are multipliers for schools of choice. And then what happens is at the beginning of the year, you're locked into your region with your teams, but they're humongous regions. Like I think there are 134 teams, and there are 4 classes: 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A. But I think 4A has like 134 schools that are in it. So it's a tremendous bracket. But then, like, you go into your seating meeting of your 32 teams, and the coaches, you get like 2 minutes to give your little spiel, like, hey, listen, we went 20-6. We had these good wins. We had 2 starters gone for 3 games. And so, and based on that, everyone gets to rank the other 31 teams. And then you come out with your seedings. And the first time I ever went to that meeting, I was like, wow, like, are people going to like rank someone low just to kind of like get them away from them in the bracket? And they didn't. So everyone was really good about that. And there's like a head of it who, wouldn't allow that a team to drop too far. So it's just an interesting way to do it. That's again, like that's a lot of forward thinking and it's a lot of work. So, I'd love to do something like that, but, like I said, I think we have to walk before we run.
I think we're all in agreement. If we just start as a
Teams
base
empowerment.
point, if we start from a basis of whatever happened before this year doesn't matter at all. We don't go in the past. We live in the present. And however we set up this tournament is based on this year. We've already solved half the problem.
Yeah, Dave, I think we either have to do that or we have to go back to school size.
Yeah, and you know what? Part of me is just saying, let's go to school size. I'd rather have school size than what we're doing now.
Me too.
I would rather, at least it's fair.
Yeah, and you bring up
at least you can say we were just like in any other sport. We're the best of the big schools. We're the best of the small schools. I agree with you 100%. I'm at the point right now. Maybe we should go back to doing that until we come up with a system that everybody or a majority agrees on is fair, because at least you know what you've won and everybody is on the same playing ground.
Yeah, I mean, that's not my first option, but I think it's better than it's easier to do if you're not going to take the time and invest in research and figuring all that stuff out.
Well, how would you account for the schools of choice if you went by school size? See,
Yeah.
I think that's a major problem.
I think it is, but I've said this before. I think in Connecticut there aren't enough. Like I've heard some coaches say they need a separate bracket. I don't think there are enough schools in Connecticut to give them a separate bracket. There has to be multipliers for them, and so most of them have to go all the way up to the top, especially if they've had any success. Like Mike, if Trinity Catholic was still around, you guys would be in the big one because. It's just some of it's common sense to me. Like that team, if you're winning the FCIAC or if you're, East Catholic and you're winning your conference, then you're with the big boys. That's the way that works. So, some of it's common sense. And then there are some other.
I agree with you on that.
That aren't going to be that high, but you have to monitor that and you have to, check it out.
Maybe you have some sort of a committee that at the end of the regular season, you look at the schools of choice and how they finished, and you move anybody out of their size up to double L if they're East Catholic or an old Trinity Catholic or one of those schools.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not familiar with all of the conferences because I just didn't grow up here, but there's an argument that all 13 or however many conferences there are, all of those teams that win the conference should want to be in the Division I tournament. They should be, and then your committee selects the other 20 teams or what have you. Or if it's 64 teams, then it's those teams. So that's kind of how. It's another idea that I would have, and I would love that.
It's kind of more makes the conference tournaments. I'm wondering, and I don't know the answer to this, and I cover the FCIAC, is would the smaller schools be like the smaller schools in college basketball? Would they be excited that hey, we're gonna maybe we want to play East Catholic and try to knock them off, or are they gonna say we'd rather stay with all the schools our size because we'll have a better chance of winning a championship? I don't know I don't know the answer to that one.
Well, listen, I know the answer.
I don't know.
I know my answer as a competitive person. Listen.
I want to play the big boys.
Yeah, I want to play East Catholic. I can't wait to be East Catholic, and that I hope we get the opportunity to do that. Right. But that's I don't understand if someone wants the other alternative. So. I can't answer that part of the question.
I'm the same way. I want them to be saying, I want to make Hoosiers about us 20 years from now.
That's a great point, Andrew. That's why I give credit to a Wilton who moved up into Division One. They're allowed to do that. Notre Dame of Fairfield could have stayed in Division Three, and Brian moved up to Division One because he wants to play the best.
Yes.
So I mean that's I mean I give credit to those coaches, and I think that the way to solve the problem with the Catholic schools like East Catholic and Trinity in the old days is to have that rating where who you beat during the season. Like if we were in the FCIAC and we're 20 or 15 and 0, whatever it would be in the FCIAC, we're automatically going to Division One. And that's same with East Catholic, Northwest Catholic, basing on who you beat, who you played, just like they did back in 2000, just like Massachusetts does now. It's not really simple, but it's not really complicated. That sounds like a statement that it doesn't make sense, but it really does make sense. This way, you could base it on size, and then who you played and how your success was.
Then the other thing,
I mean, I really think that would be a great tournament. And like Andrew said, to his point, 32 teams in that division would be a tremendous tournament. I know I've done that. It's been great. I wish they would go back to it, but again, the whole problem is getting the CIAC to move on this whole thing. As Greg Simon told us last year, you have to go to your commissioner. Commissioner has to then go to the ADs and go up to the state, and it's too much of a complication.
They shouldn't be waiting for coaches to come to them. They should be proactive about it.
Probably. Can I jump in with one more point? Yeah. The other thing that formula does, and I don't know anything about the formula. I did have someone send me the Max Prep rankings, and so like we're fourth in the state through the PowerPoints, but we're third on that thing. I think the other thing that does is it incentivizes teams to play good teams. Like that's part of the reason that we would be third, because we've had a good non-con schedule and had some success with that. And so, I just think the more that you can, like someone's 18-2 is equal to someone else's 18-2. And so, that's another reason to incentivize coaches to go play good games. And then, everyone in the state can see more good games instead of, like some.
That's a great point.
So
we've gotten away from rewarding excellence to just wanting to give everybody trophies and things like that. You should aspire to be the best. That's what sports is all about.
But as a coach, like you think about that. I used to think about that. I used to be like, hey, let's be careful about our schedule, because like you don't want to end when you're in Division One. You don't want to end up with a like an 8, 9, 10 seed, because right off the bat you're going to be on the road against one of these really good schools, and then at some point it was just kind of like we only get so many opportunities with these kids that we're coaching, and they love playing these other good teams. So and again, like I think all coaches would agree, that's how you get better. You don't get better beating someone by 35. You can get better. You get better by losing games sometimes or winning close games. So, and definitely playing against these really good opponents.
You played a terrific non-league schedule, and you did really well with your non-league schedule. You easily might have suffered 2 more losses because you played that schedule but your team is much better prepared now for who you're going to play than if you hadn't played those games.
That's the logic behind it.
Yeah, I go back to, I'm an old guy, but the old Denny Crum at Louisville days where he would just play anybody, and then they would always go into the NCAA tournament with a couple more losses, but they always did well in the tournament because they were ready for it. Sure. I think just here in 25 minutes, we've already come up with 3 possible ways of improving the tournament, depending on what flavor you like, whether you go by school size, whether you go by, 32 seeding them by PowerPoints. At some point, I think the onus is on the CIAC. It shouldn't be everybody coming to them. If I'm the CIAC right now, and I'm looking and I'm seeing that an 0-20 team is playing in my premier tournament, I say something's wrong. If I'm the head of the CIAC, I'm knocking on somebody's door. This is broke. Fix it.
Well, I also think if you make a better tournament, and if money, let's be honest, like money is a factor. So, like let's make the best product that we can. I mean, we're going to have the shot clock next year. If you have this bigger, better tournament and you put more excitement into it, like, I think that's how revenue can be increased. So, that kind of makes sense to me.
I think, yeah, if you have a 32 team Division One,
So
every
they,
one of
they
those
will
games is
change a
great
little
game.
bit. We're going to the shot clock next year.
Yep, we do have the shot clock next year. So it only took a little while. I think it took this long for the shot clock, so I don't know how long it'll take to fix the state playoffs now. But yeah, again, you're looking at a 132. You're looking at the first round games. You're gonna get a lot of people going to those games. You're gonna have, especially you just looking at the FCIAC because that's our little corner of the state. And, you had teams 9, 10, and 11 that didn't make the FCIAC tournament that could play with most of the other teams in there. It's going to be the same thing now. You put it on a statewide basis. There are going to be more good teams. So I'm with Drew in terms of incentivizing and hoping that the smaller schools, they win their tournament and they're dancing because they're going to get to play in Division One and they're all excited about it.
Sure. I think the other thing that's happening in this 5 division format is they're rewarding or they're sending some of the bigger schools down, and not, again, like if we're worried about fairness, that doesn't make any sense to push large schools down because they haven't had success in terms of winning and losing. Like, if you're a big school, I'm not sure, or even a medium school, I don't think you should be, again, like rewarded for not having success.
And basketball just is a different sport. You have 5 starters, you play 7, 8, or in your case this year 12 guys. And but if you graduate everybody this year and have an inexperienced team coming back and they put you in Division One because of what you've done the last 5 years, and again you could have Jimmy Chitwood move into town and he can carry a team. You only need 1 or 2 players. So the one thing that just has to go is the past. The past doesn't matter. I don't care what you did in 2021. I care what you did in 2022, 23. So that's the first step. And I'll tell you what, it wouldn't be my top choice, but even if we went back to double L, L, M, and S, which the girls voted to decided to stay on size, I would prefer that to what we're doing right now. It still would be a superior tournament.
Yeah, again, as long as that tournament is bigger, I really like the idea of the Division One tournament. I think it's it's a special thing. I think we've talked about this before when we got in it the first year. I tried to opt out. They sort of laughed at even, I had stats and everything else. They laughed at me about it. And now, I feel like we belong, and I wouldn't want to be any other place. I just want them to spend some time. I hope that they'll spend some time looking at it, and bettering the product, making it better. And I think that helps everybody. It helps the teams, helps the state. It probably makes more money for the state. But just having meetings or conversations like this, I think is kind of all the coaches are asking. I talked to a lot of coaches about this stuff, and that's really what people are wanting when it's comes to the shot clock or out of season coaching or the tournament or anything like this. how late we start in Connecticut versus the other state. Not to get off on other topics, but we just want to be heard, and we want someone to consider what we're talking about. And that's where this conversation lands as well.
Do you talk to a lot of coaches outside the FCIAC, and is the sentiment pretty much? I know all the FCIAC coaches feel the same way.
Yeah, so I don't want to pretend that I talk to a lot of coaches outside the FCIAC, but I've gotten to know a couple of coaches outside the FCIAC through, just through scrimmages and playing them in the Division I tournament or our tournaments. Like I've gotten to be pretty good friends with Ken Smith and a couple other coaches, and everyone feels the same way. Like everyone's sort of frustrated with the process, and what people are really frustrated with is like you just don't feel like you have any say in what your product is. And again, like at the end of the day, not to make Andrew McClellan happy, this is better for the kids, better for it's just better for the players, boys or girls, and that's kind of what we're hoping for.
I mean, I think that's a great point, Andrew. And I'm talking to, I know several coaches on the committee, basketball committee, and they feel like sometimes whatever their suggestions are falls on deaf ears. That the people above are going to do whatever they feel like they want to do, and I'm really happy they got the shot clock in. Hopefully, out of seeding coaching is coming up next. I know they give you like 2 weeks to play in the summer, which is good. Now maybe we can get him to move on the state tournament, because that would be a great move. I think Division I agree with 32 teams. However they do it, but you got to base it on this year, because for West Hill to travel an hour and a half up the East Hartford to get that, because he's a good guy and they'll try to keep it close also. So they're moving in the right direction. Hopefully they keep it going.
All right. Well, world peace next week. I think we're moving right along here, but no, I think this was a good discussion. Hopefully for everybody there, we've stimulated some ideas, and most importantly, I think there's a disconnect between the CIAC and the rest of the state with basketball, and maybe it's opening lines of communications, and hopefully the problems of this year will be the impetus to fixing them for tomorrow. So Andrew, thanks a lot for taking the time here, and wish you the best of luck in the state playoffs. Mike, we'll be doing this. I don't know when we'll do our next podcast, but we'll have another podcast for everybody soon.
Okay, thanks, guys.
All right, and that's
good luck in the state tournament, Andrew. I hope it comes down to you and my friend Grant Christian for the state championship at Mohegan Sun. And Ward is going to be there, I hope. Anyway, I'm rooting for all you guys.
Thanks a lot. Take care, guys.